Our second movie for Handout 1.06, Sonata Form. We spoke in our last movie about the exposition, what happens there. In this movie, we'll speak about the development, the recapitulation, and two customary additions to sonata form. The development. The development is marked by the greatest instability in harmony and phrase structure, the conflict that arose in the exposition, that tonal conflict that arose in the exposition is now being worked through. Anytime you work through a conflict, it can get tense. The development may have a lighter, quasi-transitional beginning called a pre-core before the development proper, core, gets underway. You'll read a bit of what Kaplan has to say about pre-core in the analysis you'll do of Beethoven's Piano Sonata, Opus 2, number 1, questions for which, as you know, are provided in the assignment folder. The core is characterized by model sequence behavior. Well, very often the material developed in the development, pardon the redundancy, was heard for the first time in the exposition. In other words, the development will often develop familiar material. That said, some developments will develop mainly new material. So here are some good questions to pose to yourself as you analyze a piece in sonata form. What's being developed here? Have I heard this material before? If so, how is it different now? Good questions to ask about the development. I mentioned earlier that the development is marked by great instability in harmony and phrase structure. So one of the things you should expect is that we're going to move through a good number of keys or tonal areas in the development. The retransition is found toward the end, at the end of the development. It emphasizes the home key dominant or dominant seventh and serves to prepare the way for the recapitulation. Please don't confuse retransition with what we'll talk about in just a second, the recapitulation. The retransition is found at the end of the development. The recapitulation is the section that follows the development. Whatever you can do to get this straight, do it. I've seen too many students confuse retransition with recapitulation. They're very different. Well, speaking of recapitulation, here are a few introductory words. If the exposition was a place of tonal conflict, and the development a place where that conflict was worked through, then the recapitulation is the place where the conflict is ultimately resolved. The recapitulation brings back in modified form the exposition, thereby imparting balance to the form. Check it out. You have material that you began with, first and second tonal area. Then you have the development. Then you're going to bring back in a modified form that material from the recapitulation that material from the exposition within the recapitulation. The main theme and the subordinate theme, or any subordinate themes, are now on second hearing sometimes shortened. Sometimes they're lengthened too. In short, they're modified. The transition to the second theme or second themes will typically be modified or omitted. Why might it be modified? Well, you'll often find that that this is because the transition and the recapitulation doesn't modulate. So the composer has to do something in order to compensate for that missed modulation. The subordinate theme or subordinate themes will reappear transposed in the home key. This is very important. This is really important. Because after all, it was that conflict between the key, between the keys of the home key and the second tonal area that was so characteristic of the exposition. So in the recapitulation, main theme materials brought back, subordinate theme materials brought back, but that subordinate theme material will appear now not in the second tonal area, but it's going to appear in the key, in the home key. So important. Well, there are two customary additions to sonata form. You may find an introduction that precedes the main theme, that precedes the first tonal area. This is the less significant of our two customary additions. Sometimes you'll find fast movements having a slow introduction. If the movement is minor, if the movement is in major, the introduction may be in minor, the parallel minor. That said, what is the more significant addition is the coda, which is very often found. Unfortunately, we cannot spend more time with the subject of codas. Part of the reason is that they are somewhat hard to generalize about. Wait a second, you mean education is about the forming of generalizations? I don't know if I should generalize. Anyway, you should note, however, that the coda to the Waldstein sonata, the first movement of the Waldstein, is very large, and it is really important. It plays a really important role in the movement as a whole. All right, so there's some material on sonata form. I've given you in the handouts an order in which I would suggest that you analyze the accompanying assignments. I think things will be clear once you work your way through these pieces. All the analysis of these pieces is designed to help prepare you for the writing of your paper on the Waldstein Sonata. So, good luck.